Ohayou gozaimasu. Welcome to Ohayou Anime, the anime podcast, where we get away with the name because it's morning in Japan. My name is John, and we're back. It's been a couple weeks, and we're going to have a new guest on tonight, so that'll be fun. We'll get an introduction of him, and talk a little bit Demon Slayer and Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise is a show I've been waiting to talk about for quite a while. And finally, we're going to get there. So without further ado, let's get our first and new guest in here. Tony, what is going on with that background?
I've never used... Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes. Yes, you're a little quiet.
Okay,
I'm turning you up.
Yeah, I haven't used this computer in a really long time, and it's like in the main room. So as you can see, there is a baby over my shoulder.
Oh my gosh! With your blur, it sort of looks like the baby's just crawling on your shoulder, like a really tiny baby, just like on your shoulder there.
Yeah, it's funny because I was testing it out. I'm like, I should probably blur this, to give some privacy to Nicole and Bailey back there. And all of a sudden, it's just like Bailey is just right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, which computer are you using?
I'm using the downstairs iMac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
what happened?
Bailey's going to be going to bed in 10 minutes, and my office shares a wall with hers. So it's
that's right.
Yeah, she would not be able to go to bed with me being like, ah!
Yep. Okay, well, let's get our next and returning guest in here, Phil. Phil, how's it going?
Good. How about you guys?
Good. Oh, I see blurry baby and Nicole in frame.
Yeah, great to be on. Been a couple weeks.
Welcome. I am Kenuff. This is a Barbie thing.
It is a Barbie thing.
Phil?
Yep.
So you saw the film?
You know.
So you saw the film then?
Oh, sorry. Yes. I'm sorry, I missed that. Yes, I saw the film. Dana and my mother-in-law and I went shortly after it came out. Loved it. It was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Want to welcome in Munch the Collector and MJ Honeybee in the chat. Thank you for jumping in. We're going to be introduced a little bit. We haven't had Tony on the anime show before.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I haven't seen Tony in years. How's it going, Tone?
It's good. I disappeared. I am now way down south.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Nicole and I had to move to down to Biloxi, so we are about as furthest south as you can get from somebody from Minnesota without going into Florida.
Yeah, Biloxi. That's down there. All right.
Oh yeah.
Sounds hot.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's 105 and 80% humidity. It's great. I stand outside for 5 minutes and just start sweating.
Just drenched in sweat. Yeah. Good stuff.
Nice. Well, before we get into Demon Slayer and then Hell's Paradise, why don't we get a little bit from Tony, your anime background a bit? Just I'm always interested in what people's progression or path, we're in our 30s or whatever, somewhere thereabouts.
I'm pushing 40, but yeah.
Yeah. And it was how do we end up watching these moving drawings yet? And how do we get there? So what's your story in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, I always thought that the other day because I think I would introduce a lot of my friends they Dragon Z.
Okay, hold on. Tony, you got really robotic. Yeah, super robotic. I don't know what's going on there. The AI is taking over. Okay, so you got yourself muted. Try coming back. Tony, maybe try if you can drop out.
Probably help again. I'll mute myself.
That's better.
Oh,
that would probably help.
Okay. All right.
Does help.
I switched it to a different audio. Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and I know a lot of my buddies, they did Dragon Ball Z, and like they tried to introduce that. I came in under Toonami back when Cartoon Network had Toonami, and they would always have these shows, and I didn't even realize they were anime at the time. Like I was like, oh, cool! It's like cool cartoons.
Yeah.
that are like late at night. So,
yeah.
Like Cowboy Bebop was kind of like my first foray into, I guess, what you would consider like anime at that time. And then of course there was like the Gundam series, and it took me years to figure out like what actual Gundam series it was on Toonami, because looking back there's a ton of them, so it's like hard to pin down which one I was actually watching at the time. But then my buddy at the time was big into in high school was big into Studio Ghibli, and so like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service. I watched those, and I like really love like that kind of animation style and like that type of storytelling. And that's kind of where I think, when John always asks me like why I prefer certain animes, and a lot of my first answers are it's the animation style.
Sure.
Right. The story can be good, but for me, if it's like really hard to watch, or if I'm just not jiving with how the animation is playing with the story, I can't really like get into it.
Interesting.
So from like that, you get like Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach, Ghost in the Shell. I said Cowboy Bebop already. So it was kind of like all the old school ones. And then moving up, I've kind of in the last year gotten back into my roots, and I said, okay, what are the ones that I like haven't watched that everyone has to watch? Like Dragon Ball Z. I know Demon Slayer was one that John's like, hey, if you're getting back into it, like you should watch Demon Slayer. You should watch Hell's Paradise with me. And I was like, all right, I'll watch them. And it was good. It kind of like reignited the fun I had watching those when I was a kid and stuff like that. Except for the downside is now John got me into Crunchyroll. But I feel like I have like anime paralysis where there's just so much of it. I'm like, I have no idea what to watch.
Yep. And depending on what mood you're in, sometimes you're like, I'm really into the show and I'm just not feeling it tonight. So I got to find something else to watch. Oh, yeah.
So, okay, a couple of things. One, at what point during that path did you understand there was something called anime and that's what you were watching?
That was high school was when it like the term anime was used, because I was talking to I keep referring to my friend. His name was Alex, and he was kind of on the fringes of anime. He wasn't like big into it. There was like a handful of ones that he liked, and that was about it. But we were talking about it, and he mentioned Cowboy Bebop at the time. And I was like, oh, I've seen that. He's like, oh, so you like anime? And I was like, I don't know what that is.
Sure.
Sure. And he's like, oh, dude. And he like Dot Hack, Sign, and like all these other ones that came out around, when was that? Like early thousands, late 90s, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So Phil, did you have much for anime in your history like this? Because I think seems to be a common thing where a lot of people, they watch something, kind of figure out it's anime, and then they come back to it. From my understanding, it seemed like you just got into it more in the last couple years out of nowhere. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, good question. I've had a couple people in my life growing up that watched it. Like my cousin Marty is my age. He's one of my best friends. Growing up, he would occasionally be like I remember in high school once, he was like, let's watch Vampire Hunter D. It's like a cartoon. It's like an adult cartoon, but let's check it out. And I watched it, and I was like, this is pretty cool, but didn't give it a lot of thought. And so he's a big, he also came up around the same time watching the Toonami and the Cartoon Network and the Adult Swim. And he loves like Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop. And I don't know if he's seen Trigun, but he would definitely love it. I got to recommend it to him because it's right up his alley. But it wasn't until Netflix started coming out with some of these like American adult anime-like, we'll call them anime-like cartoons, like Castlevania, Blood of Zeus was really cool. That I got pretty into those. And then, around that time, I think we were doing some pod episodes for Popcast on the Rocks, and you and Andrew had me on to talk about like Castlevania and stuff. And so I think, John, you and I were like just generally talking about anime and anime-like shows, and I think I was looking for more content similar to that. And I mean, it was a natural progression to go into true anime. And I think between you and Andrea, you guys gave me a lot of my early recs to start with. And I think I just started working my way into stuff, and I slowly started finding I like a lot of stuff, but I kind of started, I think, honing my preferences quite a bit certainly in the last couple of years. I've consumed a lot, and I started keeping a list of everything I've tried and everything I want to try and everything I'm halfway through. So I have a lot of series that I'm in the middle of, and I just have so many that I'm watching that I'm not making very big headway. I'm smack dab in the middle of, I'm close to caught up with My Hero Academia. I'm right in the middle of Mob Psycho 100, which has, I think, a couple more seasons that I need to watch. And then I keep starting new seasons all the time of different shows.
Yeah.
So I'm this close from starting Yu Yu Hakusho. I don't know.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's just, but
That's a good one.
yeah, that's what we were talking about the last pod. So I've just come to it the last probably 5 years, maybe not. Whatever Castlevania first became popular.
Yeah, that would have been probably maybe 3 years ago. At this
Right.
point.
So when I was 32 was probably when I started. Oh, you said 3 years ago. So when I was 34, I started. So it really hasn't been very long, but I'm making up for lost time. That's for sure. So
yeah.
And it's interesting, Tony. I just wanted to mention, Tony, you were saying that the animation style is what really does it for you, and that has to be a big part of it. For me, I like it to look good, but I'm all about the story and the style of I like fantasy. I don't know, just a variety of different things. I kind of like space cowboy type adventures. And the animation, while I appreciate the animation and I want the animation to be good, the type of animation, I don't really care. Even if it's CGI, as long as it looks good and it's compelling storyline and the animation is done in a cool way, I don't care that much what kind it is. So it's interesting. You and I are flip-flopped.
Yeah, I think for me, there was a show that Netflix had. And you're gonna have to, John. You're gonna probably have to remind me of this. I know you talked about it. It was something devil.
Oh, Devilman Crybaby?
Yeah,
An anime?
That was on Netflix?
Not Devil May Cry, but it was
Devilman Crybaby.
Yeah, Devilman Crybaby, probably. That's a popular one.
Yeah, I could not get into that one.
Okay.
That's the animation style where it's just very sensory overload kind of.
Sure.
And, it's
sure.
I don't want to use I want to say the word acid trippy, but that's
sure.
That's not the correct term. But it's that type of animation style. It's so distracting for me. I can't get into it.
Okay.
I like kind of more I guess you could say grounded style. I don't know, what you would call that, but it's akin to real life almost.
Sure.
In how it's presented.
Okay.
I want to throw in here quick that in the chat, Munch Collector is going through Castlevania right now and just bought the Chainsaw Man manga. So
yeah.
That's a good time to go through Castlevania because new season is coming out.
Yes.
Soon. And
sounds like it's going to be awesome. I've read some things that say this Richter Belmont timeline in the overall
the games.
The games and the universe of Castlevania is a really cool, really fun character, really fun period in the French Revolution. It's gonna be great. I have a feeling.
Nice. And then I'm jealous that reading the Chainsaw Man manga. I'm resisting on that one to just watch the show. But
yeah, I was gonna mention that, Tony. That's a good really out there show with a super crazy storyline, but it's really awesome. And I think the animation isn't too wild. It's pretty classic animation. What you say, John? But these some CGI, I guess. But
It has some CGI, but yeah, it's more grounded. I think Chainsaw Man of the modern action kind of things that are coming out is the best thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Jujutsu Kaisen's good too. That we're reviewing in the other episodes of the pod.
Because I think I'm like two or three episodes into Chainsaw Man. Like I just started like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, John's wife Ashley suggested it to me. She's like, you should watch this. She's like, it's a little violent, but you'll like it. And then I took the first episode. I'm like, this is a little violent.
Well, yeah, it's violent, but if it's violence against like monsters or like demons or cursed spirits or whatever, it doesn't bother me as much. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's pretty violent.
Yeah.
I think by episode 4, I was very into Chainsaw Man. I said it before on here, but like when I started Chainsaw Man, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I like the emotional element. And when I watched episode 2, I was like, well, maybe this was really overhyped. Maybe I'm not going to be into this because it was one of my most anticipated shows of the year. Mm-hmm. I was really looking forward to it. Everybody said it's worth it. Mm-hmm. And I thought maybe this is just not going to be live up to it. And then it totally did. So I was pleasantly surprised. And Who knows where it goes from here. But
nice.
I've heard people tell me that if you start something new, like give it 3 to 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And like if you don't like it after that, just don't. Like don't. Just because everybody else is watching it, if you don't like it after 4 episodes, don't.
Yeah.
It's tough to say that, but it's basically 2 episodes of a live action something on Netflix generally. 50 minutes is, 50 minutes to an hour seems what standard runtime for a lot of episodes on things.
Yep.
So these are 23 minutes a piece. You can watch 4 of them, and it's like giving 2 episodes a shot at something else.
Yep.
So
did you get the live action Cowboy Bebop 4 episodes? I don't remember if you did that.
Me? I didn't.
No, those are long episodes. Those aren't 23-minute episodes.
And you know that for certain, you bastard. You know 100% that I did not watch a minute of that.
Yes.
So.
I think out of our friends, I hold the record. I think I got 20 minutes in the first episode.
No.
I watched
JP watched it.
All of it?
JP watched the whole thing.
That's right.
He also hates the original Cowboy Bebop, which
he hates the original.
Pretty wild take, but I don't love it as much as some people do, but I don't hate it.
JP hates. He says original Cowboy Bebop is dog shit. Is his take, and he likes the live action one. So everything that JP says about anime, you have to take with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he could have been here to defend himself, but he is not. So that's on him.
Yep.
JP just likes to be contrarian.
But Tony, I had an experience where JP actually strongly referred Attack on Titan to me. I hadn't seen it yet, and it was one I've been meaning to maybe watch, and he was like, oh dude, you gotta watch it. I watched the first season and it's just not for me. I don't know. So it happened.
You made yourself go through the first season. You slogged through it.
Yeah.
You weren't enjoying it.
There's bits and pieces that I was like, this is cool, that's cool, I like that part, but overall I was not for me.
I still think there was times where that was like a moment when it came out. If you were there when it came out and you maybe hadn't seen anything like it before, I think it was maybe more impressive then. But
sure, 100%. I mean, there's definitely things to like about it, and there's definitely like really excellent art, and it's cool. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting story. It just moves too slow for me. It's like too bleak and violent, and it's just nah.
I'm actually in the same boat with you, Phil. I think I got through. The first season. I can't remember if I did or not.
Sure.
And I know John and I have talked about that, where I was like, this in itself, like in its own like nutshell, the story concept is really, and like the execution is really good. The art is fantastic. The style is good. I don't know if it's the writing or if it's just like characters or something about it just didn't click for me, and I couldn't do it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. Okay, cool. And John was very supportive and like, if you don't like it, there's so much to watch. Don't spend your time slogging through something you're not jazzed about when there's so much else to check out.
Yeah, Andrew and I always talk about that. Like the podcast is not meant to be a chore,
right?
And there's enough to watch that we can all like agree on something. And Yeah. So we've talked about that too on here and in chat and stuff about the paralysis of choice. And I wonder if that is a us thing of our sort of age, or if this is going to be if it's universal. Like I remember and kind of lament in a way the times when like there'd be a show that is on that I'm really invested in. Maybe I watch that every week or whatever. And then maybe I'd watch it again because that was the show I still loved, and there wasn't something else to like usurp it or whatever to draw my attention away. And I could really feel like I was into something. Now it's like I'm kind of into so many things, and I'm a little less connected to one specific thing that I can really care about. It's kind of fragmented, and I don't know if that's a us generation issue or if like everybody's going to be feeling that.
I think there's just a lot out there. I mean, growing up, you think about it like Toonami, right? As I mentioned, Toonami. If you were to be like, I'm going to watch Cowboy Bebop or Bago or Gundam Wing or Zatch Bell or whatever it is that you want to watch, you could be like, I have to watch it on Toonami. Okay, well, Toonami starts at 9:00 at night and then goes until 3 a.m. So, you couldn't stream it. There was no Crunchyroll. There was no way to, there weren't the DVDs, the pirate, you couldn't even get it. So if you missed that time frame, well, you have to go back and either try to watch the rerun or find out when it was going to show again. Now it's like you have the entire discography of any show slammed right in front of you. And it's just like, it's a lot, I mean, that's Nicole and I talk about it where she can binge, a show and I can't.
So can Ashley. I'm not that way either. Yeah.
I could binge certain things. Like I just started, Netflix just got the HBO show Ballers with The Rock, and he's like a NFL agent who's a former NFL player. It's really good, very bingeable. You can just have it on while you're like full laundry or whatever. It's like Entourage for football. It's like that kind of thing I can binge, but certain things like it's a lot of anime shows I can't.
Yeah.
Well, so
I don't want
Phil,
to.
you mentioned before that you kind of you took the Cowboy Bebop term and said you kind of into maybe the space cowboy sort of thing. We should do, because you shared this list with me of some older anime movies that should be viewed other than the kind of go-to Ninja Scroll, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, or the ones that we can rattle off really easy or whatever for that era. But there are more, and so I definitely think we should go into pick something from there.
Yeah.
Again, I'm in favor of like the Carnival Row or whatever one that that is free on YouTube. So that's nice. Everybody accessible for everybody. But also maybe we should look into sometime. I know we don't need to add. We're just saying we don't need to add things to the list, but it'd be something to consider because I know I've always wanted to go through it. It was one that was on Toonami / Adult Swim at different times. Outlaw Star. It was definitely a kind of near future-ish, sort of retro futuristic look at going into space. Adds a little bit of a higher fantasy level into some way, and it's definitely kind of that space cowboy sort of thing. It really feels in the same sort of shoes as Bebop, and I think that'd be a fun one to watch as a throwback for all those in our generation.
For sure, that sounds good. Absolutely.
Tony, have you threw your head back when I mentioned it. Have you seen that or just know of it? Or
I know of it because Phil, you were talking about like Trigun earlier.
Yeah.
And I was like, Trigun, like there's another one that was like at the same time as that, and I couldn't remember it, but I knew it was like that same type of like outlaw type genre. And when you said Outlaw Star, I was like, that's it. That's the one I was thinking of. Because I had seen like maybe 2 episodes of it, but it was like they were the 2 episodes that were not concurrent. So it was like I watched one episode and then like 2 months later I caught another one.
Okay. So this is a show, not a movie.
It's a show.
Outlaw Star is a show. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So it's like it's not a continual forever thing. I think it's just one season. It's a full season.
Nice.
And
Sometimes that's nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just love the aesthetic of it. So I hope it's great, but I really don't know myself for sure. So,
okay. Cool. Yeah. I am just speaking of Trigun. I am, I think, 5 or 6 episodes into the original now.
Okay. Okay.
It's really striking. So to loop you in, to bring up Speed Tony, I watched Trigun Stampede first. The kind of retelling that just dropped on Crunchyroll, like I think it was like winter 2022 season. So it's like all CGI, and it's kind of a sleeker, more futuristic CGI animation, and they really condensed the story into a lot fewer episodes, so it's like faster, and I think things get revealed a lot sooner in Trigun Stampede than they do in original Trigun. So I'm kind of comparing and contrasting, and so it's fun.
Cool.
They're both really cool and just very different, but Vash is the same in both, which is really pretty cool, which I think is the important part.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing they did with was it like Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Z Kai? Like it's the same.
So we talked about that. It's not the same because this, like, the character designs and everything were identical. The story was exactly the same, other than cutting out some filler pieces. So they did speed up Dragon Ball, but this is redrawn art. This is a new art style. The character designs are a little different. Like Vash's glasses are different. Like they just are. They're different. Yeah, it's redone. Different. It's not like a re-editing of. Right. It's a redo.
And plot points are like moved all around. Like so, it's very different from what I can tell. Yeah,
I would say it's closer to what they did with Full Metal Alchemist. Yes. Though that's still different because one was the completed thing, and then where they deviated from the manga because the manga wasn't ready or something, and then they did Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, completely redoing it, drew it all again, but then followed the manga. So
yeah.
That's one on my list. So I saw like 15 or 16 episodes. Like I really wanted to get into Full Metal Alchemist in college.
Okay.
But you had to like watch it on like the janky, is this website going to give my computer STDs or not type thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I've never completed Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. I've watched the original all the way through and the movie, which I think the movie is really good. But yeah, I've never watched Brotherhood all the way through, which is a shame. It has one of my favorite scenes in an anime. In
the dog girl,
but no,
the tragic little girl who gets transformed into like a demon dog. Yeah, I do like the show. That was a little bit like much to watch,
Chimera.
But overall it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we talked a little bit about what you guys are watching but let's get into Demon Slayer. So we've talked about this at length on the show. So Tony, say as much or as little of it as you want, but I mean, we've never gotten your thoughts on Demon Slayer before. You kind of powered through a bunch of this, more recent stuff or whatever. So, we had some varying opinions on this show, as we broke down the latest season. What did you think of Demon Slayer overall, and how did this latest season hold up or compare?
Also, I want to know. Sorry, just throwing extra. Just call me host junior here. I want to know, like, did you just watch it all recently, or have you been like following it for years and you just watched the new season?
No, I started. Let's see here. John gave me as a gift a subscription, like a gift subscription to Crunchyroll, like in April, and I think I powered through all of Demon Souls April, May, June, July.
Okay, so you did just recently kind of watch through it all. Demon Slayer, not Demon Souls. Oh yeah, right.
Different genre, different game.
Right.
Demon Slayer, yeah. So I I powered through it.
Nice.
And I knew about it because John and JP would talk about it, and I like couldn't really find the time to really get into any like news shows, right? I kind of hit that like weird stagnation period for like 6 months where I had like 3 shows that I would put on in the background whenever I was doing stuff.
Yep.
And those were the 3 shows I watched for 6 months. But I got into this one, and this one fell into the 4 episode rule for me. So like I wasn't initially a fan of Demon Slayer. Like I watched the first episode, I was like, okay, all right, I'll keep watching. 2, 3 episodes in, I remember texting John because the biggest thing that kind of came out to me watching it was like holy exposition Batman. Like everybody is like narrating everything they're doing and like why they're doing it. And I like texted John, I'm like, is this like how they're gonna do this? Like is this like what the show is? And I noticed kind of in the later seasons they don't do it as much in the later seasons as I think compared to the first season, where it was just like half the episode was just thought exposition. But I really liked the animation style. I thought, I like the animation style. It's a cool concept. Like, I'm gonna do it. And I just kind of like after the 5th episode, it just clicked, and I just like plowed through it.
Nice.
So yeah,
like, kind of like once he gets into his training, like once he's like with the other Demon Slayers, and they're like into the Spider-Verse like arc. Then it really gets going. And that spider, I remember texting John too, like, this shit's getting crazy. It's like Spider Dude has the webs and he's like slicing people up. Yeah.
It's cool because they're doing a good job, like sort of balancing out the issue that you have with a lot of these types of animes. You saw with like Bleach is like, I think in my opinion, like the most egregious of this is the first season of Bleach is really good. And it leads up to like this, the major enemy that they're all trying to defeat. And I haven't watched this in like 10 years. So excuse me if I'm a little like hazy on the details, but it was like this big Phoenix enemy, like he has to go out there and like the main character is training to get that powerful and be able to beat him. But then you got into the next season and it was like, oh, but there's this other guy that's more powerful. It's like, but no, but you just said that this was the most powerful. So now you have to come up with somebody that's like more. But what I liked about Demon Slayer is like they kind of introduced like this dude is like the dude, right? Like the guy who's trying to get
Muzan
demon, like basically building a demon army. He's got like he's the leader of like the top 12 or top 10 demons. And what I like about it is that he interacts with him, but he never fights him. And like they kind of show how powerful he actually is through just very minimal things that he can do to like completely wreck somebody's life. But they start kind of throwing these smaller enemies at the main character, and I'm sorry, what's the main character's name again?
The main character, Tanjiro.
Thank you, Tanjiro. And he can't beat the first demon, but then he does, and then he gets a little stronger, and he keeps a little strong. So you can kind of, it feels more like progressive, like he's not just all of a sudden super powerful. It's like he's here, when he's taking these hits from like in the latest season when he was fighting the second, was that the second lower 2 or lower 3, where he's just getting like face rocked by this guy, but he still keeps fighting, and you're like, it's believable that he could get up and that he could try to keep fighting even though he's getting beat, because he's done this so many times. It's not like all of a sudden he's just super powerful and can take anybody on. But it's kind of cool how they spent a lot of time kind of flushing out the lore of the background, kind of introducing like more of the intricate arcs between these characters. And I kind of like the sequence they're doing where like every season's kind of an introduction to a new Hashira, and like, you get to see how this
I like that too.
This one.
Yeah.
And a new powerful demon or two. I feel like every season there's like a villain for the season. To your point, that's nice. Like you already met the big bad, and then you get to see all these like varying levels of little bads throughout the seasons as you get to the big bad. So it is a clever way to do that.
Because you know all the big bad. It's like you've seen them all. They were all lined up at one point in time. So like you know everything that's going to come. But it's like how powerful are they actually? And they're really doing a good job of balancing that out. I personally thought the Entertainment District Entertainment District arc was a little bit better than the Swordsmith Village arc. Mainly because I think there were more episodes in the Entertainment District arc, weren't there?
I think so.
Yeah, it wasn't as quick.
I think that the Swordsmith Village arc is relatively short in the manga, which is why it was less episodes, is my understanding.
Oh, okay.
So relative to the Entertainment District.
Yeah. Plus, they had a lot more with the two side characters, too.
Right.
It's kind of hard.
I do appreciate that if the story allows for this many episodes, that's what you get. You know, a lot of times, like on American television, you get an order for this many episodes, and then now you must deliver that many episodes per season. Yep. So make it work. It's like I remember that with the Daredevil show on Netflix. Is they made a deal that they had to provide I think it was 12 episodes or whatever per season, and particularly in the second season, it didn't need 12 episodes, but they had to fill it. So. I'm all for if seasons are varying lengths, depending on what the source demands. So,
also when shows have a graceful send off instead of like becoming so bad that you want them to end.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, and feasibly with Demon Slayer, I don't know how it goes, but feasibly, with the big bad, they won't run into a Inuyasha problem. That was what happened in Inuyasha. Inuyasha is great for a couple seasons or a few seasons. And you do know the big bad. You do know who is the target, who's responsible for everything. And but they keep doing these things to like have him slip away, and he's here, and then I guess he's already disappeared, and it just for season after season after season.
It gets to a point where you're like, come on now.
So they've also structured this now where you have the lieutenants, basically you have these are the underlings, and unless they really were to bend things, it's a finite amount of things we get here. And seeing the clip we're going at, I'm all for that. So you because I know that was one of Mike's complaints, was about how Tanjiro seems to be powering up too fast, getting too many abilities too quickly. You feel like the pace of his improvement is reasonable?
I would say, thinking about it, yes, I think it is to a point. There were a couple of things he pulled off in this latest season where I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay. You can just do that now. And one of them's like the thunder step, right? He's like, oh, remember, breathe and feel every muscle. And it's like, oh, that's right. It's like, what? No, you never had that conversation. What are you talking about? And all of a sudden, you just, and I'm like, really? You can just do that now? I like that because he was water first. He had a lot of his was like the water style of how he wanted to fight. And he got the fire and stuff like that. And I felt like that was a natural kind of character progression. It kind of linked up with like how they were telling not only his backstory, but like kind of trying to loop in his family and like loop in the connections with some other Hashira and all that kind of stuff. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, outside of being able to just inherently do something immediately, I don't think there's been that egregious of character. Like he just like I guess you could call it Deus Ex Machinas. Like he just can do something because plot.
Well, maybe this will help you, Tony. My theory on why he can do these different forms of breathing is that he's a sun breather, right? And like all energy comes ultimately from the sun. So water, lightning, wind, it's all made possible because of the sun, and life is possible because of the sun. So sun breathers can do it all, man. It's like they can do all the things that the sun makes. They can do water, fire, wind, lightning.
It's
just
kind of
ropey.
At the end of this, like I watched the finale actually yesterday. And in my head, it was funny that you mentioned that, Phil, because in my head I was like, I wonder if they're gearing up this like kind of like an Avatar thing, where it's like he can do all of the Hashiro's different styles whenever he needs, and he can like interweave them while he's fighting and stuff like that. I'm like, it's not a bad like kind of thing to go if they're trying to do like the Chosen One arc situation.
I mean, yeah, good point. I mean, and to that point, that's probably what you need to beat Muzan, unless it's going to be like everyone, all the remaining, Demon Slayer core fighting him together. But I think it's going to be Tanjiro mostly, probably, or maybe Tanjiro with a little help from his buds. But
no, I think that's fair. It's it has been set up where it's been hundreds of years and the Demon Slayer core has made little progress. Like the idea that actually one of the upper ranked demons actually died was like groundbreaking. Holy hell, we managed to do this. So I think it's reasonable to assume in our story we need to have something that is radically different, someone that is radically more powerful, someone that has a different, that we haven't seen for hundreds of years, because otherwise it's more of the same, and that's what makes this particular story worth telling. So
I'm also curious to see what they do with his sister, because that was the last thing where they're like, oh, so she can like, can we talk about spoilers? Can we do that?
Yes.
Oh, she can go out in the sun now. And that one caught me off guard. I was like, what? Like, this completely breaks all the rules that we were like told about. And we weren't even alluded to like that being a thing. So I'm curious where they kind of go with that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, well, so overall, Demon Slayer positive experience. It sounds like I'm the same. Like you mentioned the exposition, like you say, we talked about that a long time ago. Gets better at points, but there's also like a level of accepting it, and I don't love this, and so I've said it on here now. Like I'm really being more harsh. Because look, Demon Slayer, one of the biggest properties in the world right now, like between Japan and Korea and the West, it's huge. Huge thing. And these things should be doing better. They should be getting another pass at the script or something. They should be getting, because I've tried to give, leeway, excuses, maybe there's this reason, translation, something or another, or whatever. I don't think it is. I think it's a style of storytelling that's being done and people are accepting it, so it persists. And I think that more people need to complain about it. Like I understand the target audience for something like Demon Slayer is, as a shonen, is like young men, boys, really. And so they don't want, there's this level of, I don't want to leave too many people in the dark if I don't explain enough. But as we were just talking about Jujutsu Kaisen, Phil, 2 weeks ago or whatever, sometimes the explanation is, you just have to accept it as, okay, yeah, sure. Because it doesn't make any sense really anyways.
Right, yeah.
They're using their own set up rules in the world, and you just have to go with it. So why don't we just go with it and forego? Yeah. So
100%. Yep.
I think it's worth harping on. Ultimately, a lot of times it doesn't like detract horribly from my enjoyment of the thing because I get so much else out of it.
Agreed.
But it's a problem.
Could still be better. Could always be better.
Yep.
I think for me, it's exposition to a point isn't bad. And it's hard for me to kind of have this conversation because I also I get down on movies that do like narration, right? So like if you watch a movie, Pacific Rim did this. The first 15 to 20 minutes of that movie is just narration. It's some dude talking about the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
That's really bad writing.
Yeah.
and so to your point, it's like, well, why is this any different, right? And it's hard for me to make that distinguishing because, like, when I said it, like the first season, I was like, holy exposition, because they were really egregious.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's like I don't notice it as much, or maybe they're only narrating like different things, or they're not narrating everything.
I think it's like once you kind of set the world, I think it's always worse in the first season, because then once you kind of have everyone's kind of familiarized with the plot and the story and the world, then you don't need to do it as much. That's my perception. That's probably why I didn't notice it as much.
You know the rules, so.
Here was my most, I think, reasonable explanation for some of it is in Japan, the market to be in certain magazines, monthly magazines, is really competitive. Like for Shonen Jump, I believe the readers in Japan vote in every issue and like what they like, and the bottom stuff gets kicked out. So sometimes things get moved to other magazines that are less popular, and then they just disappear. And so my idea was maybe we're not given too much room to let you wonder 3 months, 4 months, and then find out some answers. We need to give you this right away so you understand what's happening here. So you are like, am I in on this or not? Because you can see like setting up something and it's like, oh, this is really cool. Like you got to wait. You don't know what's going on yet. You don't know why this is really cool or why this is important, but it's going to be once we explain it naturally through the flow of our story. But if you're like, I'm out because I don't know what's happening here, and you don't read it,
other shows to choose from.
Yeah, that's my only reasonable explanation. But I see it in so many other things too. I see it in American comic books that are like funded through Kickstarters and stuff like that. That's not, applicable there, I don't think. So I don't know.
Interesting. I think that's a good, reasonable, believable.
My only reasonable hypothesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Demon Slayer, out of the way. Whenever we get a new season of that, we'll be probably talking about it.
Be a while, probably.
Yeah, probably be it.
It's a good time. Consensus. Yeah. It's a good time.
Yeah. Okay. For sure.
All right. Let's get into a show that wrapped a little while ago. I read the manga, and that's why I was like, oh, okay, I'm excited for this anime to be coming out. MAPPA is the one that created it, and they're responsible for a lot of great stuff. The Chainsaw Mans of the world and Jujutsu Kaisen and some of that. So that we're currently going through. And so I was happy about the studio. And let's see. So Phil, I know when did you finish this? Was it pretty recent?
A month ago, maybe, or so. Month and a half ago.
Okay.
Something like that.
And Tony, you just finished it, right? You just wrapped it up?
Yesterday.
Okay.
All right. So, Tony, it's freshest in your mind. Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise. Yes. All spoilers allowed. No for you, no context from the manga, I believe. So, what'd you think of the show?
I really liked this. This was one that only took me like 2 episodes to get into. But there's 2 things, I think, 2 big things about this. One, the opening theme, unironically, is really good. Like that it just it's a banger of a song.
Oh, it is really good. Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. It's great. Yep.
Yeah. That was I remember I texted you the first episode. Like I texted John, I was like, this opening theme is like, I want to put this on my like iTunes. Like this is good. And I think the second one is, so when I started watching this, I watched the first episode in English, and then the second and third episode in Japanese. Oh. And then I waited like 3 weeks or something to watch the second and third episode in English, and then go on to only watching it in English. Okay. This is one of the ones where I tried watching this in Japanese, which John and I have gotten. I have been chastised many a time by John for only watching English dubs of a lot of anime.
Oh, sure.
And there's two reasons for that. One is it's really stupid. If I'm watching at night, like before I'm going to bed, I'm tired. I'm kind of like I could be drifting off and like trying to read and watch everything at the same time. Yeah. Like, I'm tired, and then I have to end up like rewatching half the stuff anyway. The other thing is I'm an idiot and I can't read things, but I'm also trying to see stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I experienced that sometimes too.
The big thing is I'd like to get, if this is maybe just a me thing or something, but it was hard to watch the Japanese one because the tonal inflection of the different characters, I felt when I was watching it didn't really portray the scene that they were trying to voice act.
Okay.
And some of the characters I felt sounded really similar. And so it became difficult to watch. Or I was like, I just don't like the Japanese voice acting. I just don't think it's good. And so I switched and watched it in English, where it's the Gabimaru's character. In the Japanese version, he comes off as very like just bored. Like he's just kind of bored with everything. Like that's kind of the tone his character has in the Japanese version. He's just like, this is all mundane to him. He's done it all before. This is boring to him. Where in the American version, the man who does the voice for Gabimaru, kind of brings this like brooding context to it, where you feel as though this isn't like a boring thing for him. This is something that he really doesn't want to do, but he has to do it because there's a deeper thing, right? At the beginning, it's leading into, he's doing it for his wife. So they really play on this idea that he wants it to because he hated this life that he created for himself. And so he wants to try to get back to this peace of mind. And then, of course, the cliffhanger they end on is they're like, was it all a lie? And all of a sudden his entire character changes, and you get that context from the voice acting that he does. There's a tonal difference between the Gabimaru you met up through episode 11, and then the end of episode 12. Even the contextual voice acting is different. Like you can tell this is a different person. And I'm
gonna have to clip that. Make it a clip so I can like throw you into the fire just saying that the Japanese voice acting sucks for Hell's Paradise. The headline and
you are clickbaiting this. I said I didn't like the Japanese voice acting. It could be great Japanese voice acting. I don't have enough context to know if it's great Japanese voice acting. I just know.
Well, I'm not going to include this part in the clip.
Yeah, you right. So I mean, that was kind of like one big takeaway was that I tried watching it in Japanese because I wanted to stick and watch it with John because I was watching it at the same time as John. And after like I said, the third episode, I was like, I gotta watch this in English.
Okay.
Well,
fair enough.
Okay, I have to say, you'll never get good at reading the subtitles and watching it
if you don't
do it. Yeah.
If I don't,
fair. I mean, and sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Like if we had been watching, what is it? Mashal all together going through that.
Yep.
It would have taken weeks for me to be able to. It was the delay between dubs was lengthy on that for
new stuff. You're almost always gonna have to watch in Japanese if you want to watch it right away.
Yep.
So like I haven't picked that back up again because it was such a long delay. I don't know if it's all done now in English or not.
I'm not sure.
And there is some stuff that I will watch just because they never made a dub version of it.
Sure.
It's either it's too old, so they never actually ported it to America. Never actually made an English dub version of it.
Right.
And the story's so good, and so I'll watch it. Like the original Gundam movies, it's only in Japanese.
Yeah.
MJ Honeybee in the chat says dubs over subs, so you got an ally there.
Yeah.
And,
I don't have a preference particularly. It's usually what I started it in. So like I started watching like a good example, one of my favorite anime, one that really propelled me into being like, oh, maybe I need to watch more anime, like because there's a lot of good stuff out there. One Punch Man, just wild and entertaining, and kind of a what do you call it, John? When it's like making fun of itself.
yeah,
Parody.
I don't know.
Kind of a parody anime, kind of
Yeah.
leaning into the tropes of like shonen and stuff. Sure, what, Tony?
Self-aware.
Yeah, very self-aware of what they were doing. But I started in Japanese, and then I accidentally, was like most of the way through the first season. This was years ago, and I started an episode, and I accidentally had it in English, and I was like, ugh, I don't like any of their voices at this point. Like that just doesn't like Saitama's voice in English is not how his vibe is in Japanese, and I did not like it. But there's lots of shows that I've started in English that I really like in English that if I went and watched in Japanese, I'd be like the same, like, oh, this is just off-putting for me because I'm so used to it a certain way. So, but I did make the switch with Demon Slayer because I had to, because it wasn't available in English. So I'd watched it in English all the way up through the most recent season. And then I had to watch the Swordsmith Village arc in Japanese. And it was like, took me an episode to get used to it, but then it was fine-ish, Yeah,
sure. That one wasn't as egregious. Because I remember watching a couple of those episodes in Japanese. And it is not. I think the Japanese voice acting in Demon Slayer is actually pretty on par with getting total, context out of, if you're not... Because, my biggest, drawback is I don't listen to a lot of anime in Japanese. So being able to contextually hear tonal differences in Japanese native linguistics is not something I can natively pick up.
Sure.
So, and part of that is, like you said, I don't do it enough. So practice makes perfect for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Hideko, thanks for coming into the chat for the first time. Welcome in. We're talking Hell's Paradise. So, Phil, what did what'd you think of Hell's Paradise?
Yeah, Hell's Paradise. I think you had recommended this to me also, John, as just like a cool show. You had read the manga, you were going to be watching it, or had started it. I was looking for recommendations. I just gotten Crunchyroll, and you're like, well, here's several options to try out, and Hell's Paradise is one of the top shows. So I started it. I didn't love it at first. I didn't hate it, but I was kind of like, this is intriguing. I'll continue on. It wasn't until they got to the island and really we started kind of peeling back some of the secrets of the island. Like, it was interesting. Initially, there's fighting these big dumb monsters and these weird bugs that turn people into flower people. It's like disturbing and weird, but it wasn't until we started meeting like the Tenzin and like the tree man and like this little girl who's mysterious until I was like, and we started actually like meeting the Tenzin and like when they were talking in their group and when they were explaining about how they're like not male or female or they're both and then like when they started converting into their true form as like these giant flower monsters, that's when the second half of the season I loved. The first half of the season was good and fine, but it took me a bit to really like love it.
Okay.
My main takeaway.
Poll they did. That poll where they're just like, oh, actually, this is all legend. There is no elixir. You're literally just playthings to us. Like we do not care about you at all. You're here and you got tricked into coming here and you make us young. It's like that was one of the few times when you watch certain shows or whatever and you either like the bad guy you're like okay. This is the first time I'm like, oh, you have so got to die.
Yeah, I mean, when I read the manga, it was almost all out when I started it. And so I went through it pretty fast. And so that really helped me get into this because as we were watching it, Ashley and I were watching it, it was like, oh, just wait, because that blew by really quickly in the manga, me reading it to where the really opened up. It just, I liked it so much because it went places I didn't expect. They set this in like our, supposed real world or whatever, throw people on an island, and just all the things that happened and the creatures are exposed to and how everything unfolds. I just didn't expect it all, and so I really enjoyed the world. It reminds me of like a like a Land of the Lost or something, where you're an X-Men and you end up going to the Savage Land or whatever. It's like it's a world within a world, and you just don't know what's going to be there.
True.
And so I liked that element a lot about it.
Yeah. I have a little bit of issue, and I was able to get over it because, I mean, you see similar things in like Demon Slayer, but like in a world where they haven't really explained like a formal magic system, you have these people who just like have powers that it's like they just like grew up in like this like ninja village where they just train all the time. They've just gotten super strong and super good at their craft. But it's like Gabimaru has like powers. I mean, he can like, he like makes like, I mean, he has like these flame powers. So it's like, I had a little bit of hard time with that. Like you didn't just get those from like training hard. Like that's the whole gag in One Punch Man, to bring it back to One Punch Man, is like he trained so hard and then he's like all of a sudden super powerful. And at one point his mentee is like, that's not how you were so powerful. Like that can't possibly be because you did 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and ran 5 miles every day. Like you didn't get the powers to be able to kill monsters in one punch. Like clearly there's some sort of like, and they do go into it later in the show and in the manga about, how he actually gets these powers. But it's kind of like that. Like maybe they'll explain it eventually, but Gabimaru is not just like some normal human, clearly. But
it's not one off though, right? Like if it was Gabimaru was the only one that could do something, you're like, well, why only him? But it's
and others.
It's like everybody has this, and so the blanket. Oh, they all just train really hard. It's like that's what you're going to use. Then fine, but
I guess, yeah.
I would. To your point though, I'd like to know a little bit more, and the way they kind of ended the first season, I think they're really going to dive into that because there definitely is something like more there. They just didn't really want to they wanted to tease it a little bit.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah,
but like the dude who's blind and is like, oh, I can sense. I'm like, oh, so you're Daredevil. Okay, so that dude's just Daredevil.
Yes, that was cool. But yeah, like, he's just like can take on these guys now. Like, it's all right.
A lot of this plays off and I think it's common in anime and manga in general, but like it plays off the idea of the kind of mystical legends of the land. So, you'd have all sorts of, whether it's spirits of different things or, the idea of chi, you'd have people now that think you can really become like a Tai Chi master, floor yourself with chi, and now they're immovable, so there's this kind of belief system in like life force and energy force and stuff that you could harness. And so these shows, I think, are just tapping into the idea that if that were real, this kind of legend, mystical stuff entails. I mean, throughout time, how many ancient figures have been embellished greatly that they're able to take down and slay some beast or whatever. Now, sometimes they don't maybe specifically say there's a power involved, especially in the West. But I think in the East, that's more common. And so this show is just taking more literally the idea of chi. And so they introduce that, midway through, where let everybody know, like, some of you are really harnessing this, tan, they're calling it here, already, true. And you don't understand. And there's no way you can defeat someone that's a master of tan and understands it and can see the world basically through the force. So where the idea of the force comes from, sensing all living things and stuff. It's an inner energy sort of thing. Yeah. So I think it's just playing on that sort of mysticism.
All right. They pull it from the religious aspect though, which I think was because that's a big portion of this show, is the idea that the Hell's Paradise was kind of where it's almost like they want to play into the idea that that's where all the different religions kind of started from, or maybe spawned from, was because they talk about like Taoism and Hinduism and Taoism, all these different religions that have this fundamental idea of a life force or a greater force above all else that kind of weaves and flows through everything and everyone at a molecular level. And they kind of talk about that and they bring all that in. So I wonder if they're kind of playing on that idea of religious fundamentalism coming from this island, spawning from people who left or people who have escaped it and kind of spread this idea.
Why didn't they mention midichlorians?
I think they do.
Because they knew Disney's lawyers would wreck house.
Yeah, that was another thing I really liked about it. The manga had a lot of extra context. Like when you're done with each volume, it said like it explained further where each kind of element came from, and like if you didn't understand the reference to a specific religion, it would kind of go into that a little bit more. So I did like that kind of combining of these, other religions and cultures into one.
So you mentioned this earlier, and I kind of wanted to curious about this. So is Hell's Paradise, did the manga come out and then they started making the anime like right afterwards or right in parallel? Or is this one of those ones where it's like the manga has been out for 10 years and now they're just making an anime on top of it? Because you've kind of been mentioning that like Demon Slayer and a lot of these other ones are kind of being made in parallel.
Yeah, I don't know how far ahead Demon Slayer is, and it might be done. I really haven't kept tabs on it because I don't want to know.
I thought Demon Slayer was done, but
okay.
Or close to.
It sounds right. I feel like we've at least talked about that, but I don't know for sure.
I'm pretty sure.
But Hell's Paradise, the manga wrapped up probably a couple years ago now at this point. So presumably they started working on this, I guess, shortly thereafter the manga was done or something like that. I can see them like being done and like, hey, here's this story. Like, who wants to make this? And then they could see it all the way through and make it. So, it's not old. It's not old.
Yeah, someone was talking to me about like One Piece. Like the One Piece anime has been like one guy, and he's like making the manga and the show at like the same time or something.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, like they're both still going.
Yeah, there's so many
both still going.
They told me like you should watch One Piece, but here's like the actual like what you should watch, and it's like half. They're like you can get away with just watching half of what's actually there.
Oh, really? There's lists of that.
Even that's like 500 episodes. I don't know if I have the.
Oh, it's still a lot. Yeah, there's like 1,300 episodes or something right now. Something's really
I don't know.
Something like
if it looked like the coolest thing I've ever seen, I might do it, but it doesn't at all to me. It just doesn't look appealing in any way to me. So even though I've been told a million times it's so great, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
No.
Maybe someday I'm in the nursing home.
Maybe.
There's not much anime being made anymore or something like that. And it's like, what do I spend my time with?
One Piece.
Between taking a dump in my pants, I'm going to watch episodes of One Piece.
Right.
And then eventually playing Elder Scrolls 6 because it'll finally come out.
I'm waiting. Yeah, sure. Something like that. So, okay. So, what do we have problems with in this show? Tony, you got any big problems?
There was one thing that I was like, really, like, do you really want to go there? And it wasn't something they fixated on. It was something they kind of had like thrown into the lore in passing. And it happened when they talked about the little girl that they had and how like basically in a nutshell, this group of people that were under the Ton. Wait, no, Ton is the energy.
Ton's the energy.
Yeah, was the people at the top again?
The Tenzin.
Thank you, the Tenzin. That like the people below them who want to be like them but can't, like have to somehow merge with this energy, and the way they do it is like through this little girl. And so they're talking about how they pass this little girl around, and I'm like, okay, like do we really like you had to do that?
That was pretty. That was kind of off-putting, but yeah.
Okay,
That
so a
was
little bit of, I believe, a little bit of like shifting of how that is, to my understanding. She was not someone under them. She was one of them. So
Right.
if
Sure.
so
Wasn't like a prisoner.
all the others partake in this, the I forget, like 3 types of training, and they're saying the one, basically the combining of the masculine and feminine energy, like having sex together, is one type that strengthens their whatever. And so they all will like flip genders to like participate in this or whatever. And it's like she was not interested in this. So like one of them decided, I don't want to do it, and throws a wrench in their plans. Now, I don't remember if she's a more critical element to this, to their plans, or what. I don't remember. I don't remember what they said in the show. I don't remember what happens in the manga. But yeah, it's a little like I shouldn't. I think I won't say anything more because I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the show or if it's to come in the manga.
Sure.
So
Okay.
but it's it's less egregious than you're laying out, I will say.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
So
it was just
whether
in the context of what those 2 guys on the beach were telling Gabimaru. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sit right.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Because when I feel like he was like like that's how he felt too, because he's like, I'm pretty much not gonna let her go back with you guys. So
Right.
Yeah, that's why they ended up killing them.
Right.
They're like, that ain't gonna happen.
Not gonna happen. Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yeah, and out of
that's
context for anyone else like unfamiliar with like how these beings have existed for centuries, right? What else would it seem like? Oh, sure, training. You're gonna do training, right?
Give you some training, you sickos.
Yeah.
In your face.
I told you not to interrupt me when I'm training, Mom.
How about you, Phil? Any big problems you had?
No, not particularly. I think it's like one of the. I mean, I feel like shows either have a lot of exposition and like over-explain things, or like under-explain things. And when they under-explain, it's like just a little bit like you're kind of trying to piece together as you go, and you're trying to figure it out, and which is fun. But then it leaves you like, I want to know what happened. And so while that's not a bad thing, it just leaves me a little unsatisfied because I don't know the answers to a lot of the secrets of this island. But that's the whole point. That's the fun. But then when you have to wait years in between seasons, it's like, maybe it won't be years, but it's kind of like I kind of felt that way a little bit about Attack on Titan. I mean, one of my problems with it was that they're teasing all these things like the basement where all these secrets are held, and then they move about, then they don't move anywhere near the basement in the whole first season. Like they tease in the very first couple episodes. And then that's also a show like Hell's Paradise where I feel like they don't explain a ton. You just kind of experience it as you go. But then if it also goes slowly, that's painful. I thought Hell's Paradise moves much more quickly. So it's like, I think we will get the answers pretty quick. I mean, we learned a lot in this first season. So that sometimes is frustrating for me. Like, what I need things explained to me a little bit more, like, but it's probably meant to be a little bit like confusing, and it'll, reveal its secrets at the appropriate time.
Yeah,
sure.
This was a good balance because I do not think there was a lot of exposition. There was a lot. They kind of told there was almost two stories being told throughout the entire season. You had the main side A, which was go to this island and get the elixir. So anything that's happening on the island is side A. Side B is like, why are all these people in the positions they are? And now you start kind of talking about their, backstories and solidifying the choices they're making, like why they feel that way, why they're doing what they're doing,
right?
What are their motivations? And that's a really good way to storytell because it's not like them narrating what's going on. It's you learning more about these people's ambitions and what drives them.
Yep. Well, and it's a whole kind of like it's one of those whole fun dynamics where it's like you got the cop and you got the inmate working together, and then after they spent some time together and like fight together, they're realizing they're not that different after all, and by a small little deviation, they could be in the same position, and they're that's a fun story to tell too. They're like understanding each other. It's like in American History X where Edward Norton like meets that dude he's in the laundry room with, that African American gentleman who got put in prison for stealing a TV and accidentally dropping it on the cop's foot when the cop grabbed his arm. And it's like a light bulb moment for Edward Norton's character, like, oh, like black people are incarcerated at much higher rates, partially because of institutionalized racism. And like it's like one of those things where you spend enough time with someone you think is totally different than you, and you're like, oh, we're very similar actually. And not a perfect comparison, but it's kind of like that sort of a deal.
It's a fun story. I mean, it's not a new story, but it is definitely a fun way to tell that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you saw it coming about. Like,
sure.
They're like, oh, everyone gets their own guard. I'm like, okay, I don't know where this is going.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I guess that kind of leads into my one of my complaints. I kind of have three complaints I can think of. One is, and maybe it's different. I suppose because I read the manga, but for me, there was exposition was pretty good, other than one or two episodes. There was for sure one episode where there was sort of an information dump about Tan, and some of the lower bad guys were explaining Tan to Gabimaru. And to me, that was just like, why is this happening right now? Why in this situation of combat, basically, you're trying to get the girl back, all this stuff. Why is this happening in this moment? This seems pretty lengthy for me to understand this. Now, maybe if you're like, well, okay, this is all new information. It was just interesting enough that like it didn't matter, maybe to not notice it. Ashley didn't seem to care. But it definitely bothered me. It's like, okay, I understand we need to understand what Tan is, but it was a little too much all thrown at once.
Yeah.
I'm surprised the tree dude didn't have that exposition. Like he wasn't the one that.
Yeah.
He had a lot of narrating stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have felt more appropriate. He kind of seemed like he sort of held that back. Like there was a little like hinting at it or something, but
I don't think he fully knew. I think at the end of the season you realize that nobody outside of the Tenzin really actually knew anything.
Right. Yeah. Everybody else is a pawn. Everybody else was like they were given a false story to worship them. Just keep everybody in line, keep basically the energy source going and all that sort of thing. But
yeah.
My other thing is minor, but it is still something I'm going to point out. It's, and I hate when things do this. This show in particular is technically a seinen. So that means for like young men, or it's like our age, I
never go with this.
That's the target. So it just means it is for adult age people.
Yep.
And in the manga, they draw the nipples. In this, you have like no nipples,
I know.
which is like it makes them not real,
right?
Yeah. It's like, now are they a clay body, like a clone that's not a real thing? It's sort of like in Ghost in the Shell. You can kind of excuse it because it's an artificial body, whatever.
Sure.
So there's no excuse in this.
No.
And so it's drawn in the manga. There's no reason in a show that is targeted at adults and rated as such that you would then erase them in the animated version.
It's very weird.
So
hang on, Phil. It's very weird that they did that, or it's very weird that John's upset about this.
Oh no, I agree. I mean, he prefaced it was a minor gripe, but I agree with John. It's for adults. Why not just you're explicitly showing violence. like
right, disembowelment,
right.
sex. It just.
I mean, they're
so
having
then you're
sex
gonna-
on the show.
Yeah, it's
Why not
adult
throw some nipples on there?
themes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I get it. It's just it was really funny because until you said it, I like never noticed it
thought about it.
until you like.
Well, I
said
think
it.
on some of these shows they'll show like through the shirt, but then it's not when they're unclothed. It's just like weird.
So it's like if I'm watching a PG-13 movie and the whatever couple had sex and then it's morning and they're getting up, the woman always does this like towel, brings the whole bed sheet with.
Yeah.
It's a Nicole Kidman moment in
Right.
Batman Forever. Like, something's at the window. I'm going to take the whole freaking bed sheet to
Right.
cover. It's like you're presumably alone in here even. And what are you doing? And like, just get out of bed and go.
Right.
But we have to cover this up because it's a PG-13 movie.
Right. Sure.
So when you have something that say, okay, is now an R, you have to be of a certain age to go into the theater to see it. That doing that same kind of thing just stands out as like extra implausible and unrealistic. It literally takes me out of the moment.
Sure.
When it's like, oh, how you both have clothes on in the bed now. What'd you you had sex and then you got fully dressed and you're, like whatever, it's just like all these things
what moment, John, puts you out of what moment in particular?
It takes me out. It's like I realize that I'm in a film now and it's all fake. So it's things like this that just, it's just it's a bothersome little thing that's worse because it's easily correctable. Like it's a choice to do this. You could choose to not do this, and so.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it because I mean, what was it? Edge Runners fully committed to that.
Exactly.
Exactly. They were like, I mean, that is a very adult anime, and they fully committed to it. So I mean, I definitely get the point where it's like if your rating and your audience is 18 and above or 21 and above, it's like, there are worse things on like YouTube Raid Shadow Legends ads than you're showing on this show.
Right.
So, and then my third thing is MAPPA does a really good job making some of these shows. I feel like they gave less budget to this one than some of the others. Now, I'm not saying that's unwarranted because, like, I really liked the manga. As far as I know, it didn't like blow up the world, become the biggest thing. So. I understand that, but I felt it in moments where it's like that animation would be smoother if this was Chainsaw Man. Sure. That moment would have had a few more frames or something. It's like a little clunky at times. And like there were moments that were really cool. Like some of the ninjutsu moments when Gabimaru is like pulling out the flames. It's like, oh, that's awesome. They obviously put money into the opening sequence between the song and the animation. That's great. Yep. There's some good stuff, but from the studio, I expect a little better.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
I mean, I like the animation style. I like it, but I definitely see what you're talking about. Like it's not what you would consider a like detail oriented animation style, right? They use a lot of backgrounds that are not diverse color palette. They're not detail oriented, it draws your attention to a lot of the detail are like, for example, in this, you're mainly looking at the two characters, right? So they're going to put a little bit more animation, but that's it, right? And they're not going to over animate the entire, they're not going to like Studio Ghibli the entire thing.
Right.
See, where's this guy's nipples? Even the dude doesn't have nipples.
I know.
Well, if you also notice, he doesn't have a belly button either. So there might be like an actual animation choice.
I mean, not human, but still, looks human. So why not add some nipples on?
Yeah.
John's campaign to bring the nipples back.
Yeah. Yeah, it was me that put nipples in the bat suit. That was my choice.
Nipples in the
I-
bat suit.
and
Yes.
I like the art style.
Mhm.
So like the art style looks pretty reminiscent of the manga, and I feel like that is well done.
Yeah.
It's just the literal animation element of it. So, let's see what other thoughts we have here. Anybody have a favorite character? Like, let's Phyllis, say favorite character and least favorite character. A character that could really use some work, or you not caring about much at least, and then someone that stands out as like you like them a lot.
Yeah. You said me first.
Yeah.
I really liked. I'll say two. I think they were paired up together, so I'll use them. I really liked the sort of nerdy dude with the glasses and the like assassin sex pot.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
They were paired up together, right?
Yep.
I thought they were a fun like pairing, and I thought they were fun characters for the environment. Like, this dude doesn't seem like he's cut out to be there, but you actually, over the course of the season, you're like, oh, he brings special skills. He's super smart. He's a great planner. He's good at like coordinating things and organizing, and then this chick seems like this, also someone you wouldn't want there, just like doesn't seem to care that much about anybody else or what's going on. She seems like kind of a wild card, like she's gonna get them all killed. But she ends up being a survivor and having like a lot of good points and just really fun characters. I thought they added some like just a fun mix, because all the other characters' personalities are a little more like what you'd expect of people going to this this kind of island and trying to do this mission. And then characters I didn't like as much.
Yeah, so the woman you're talking about is Yuzuriha. That's a weird name to say. Yuzuriha.
Yeah.
Doesn't even sound Japanese particularly. And then her guardian guy.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Actually, I think she killed her original guardian guy, and maybe that guy's prisoner got killed, and they kind of hooked up shortly on the island.
I don't know.
So I think she seduced her first guardian dude and like killed him. But classic Yu Suriha. I'm just kidding. What's her name? I don't know.
Yeah. It's let's see. Yeah, Yuzuriha. Yeah. So, characters I didn't like as much. I don't know. I don't know if there was anybody I like didn't like. Yeah, that one, the one on the right there. Yeah. I guess I didn't love Gabimaru's the girl, the gal on the left isn't my favorite. I would say her character feels a little flatter. I think there's just obviously they're flat. She's least favorite.
Yeah, probably. I don't think I don't like her as much. I don't like dislike any of the characters really, but
okay.
Yeah, just was my favorite. I think they're obviously fleshing out her whole story and her motivations and stuff. But yeah,
right.
See, I was the opposite. I liked her as a character, but there's definitely more to her that's going to be coming up. I think in the next season. I think they established her very much as a primary character. And I liked her. I thought she was the idea of you grew up in a samurai village and you're a woman, so you can't be a samurai and da 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 da. And she ends up becoming a very learned swordsmith and sword wielder. I think is pretty cool in that aspect of how she brings that to carry that through. What was funny is the girl that you brought up, the one on the right. I initially did not like her because I thought she was super annoying, but I really loved character development. I think they did a really solid job where at the end you actually see that she did really care for the dude with the glasses.
Yeah.
Like she actually actively didn't want him to die, and so he did, spoiler alert.
Right.
She cared for, like she was holding on to him, helping him kind of pass away. And I was like, that's comparing that scene to when you first get introduced to her, that is some very big juxtaposition.
Yeah, true.
The dude that I hated, the guy I was like, God, this guy's so annoying. They're the two brothers where one of them's the guardian and the other one is the convict.
Yeah,
and the dude's the guardian's just
Toma and Cholbe.
He's just like simping for his brother the whole time. And it's just like, dude. Like,
I changed my mind. Though, the two brothers, they're my least favorite. Changed my mind. I forgot about those guys.
Yeah.
They're
like the one dude. It's like I kind of didn't want them to succeed because they were annoying. Right?
Yeah.
Like the guy's like, oh, I'm eating. I'm going to eat this thing that I just killed because I'm hungry. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. And what are we?
All right, man.
And they finally kind of talked about it. Which I think is really interesting. So this guy, this brother, he got more interesting. Chobe got more interesting as the season went on because you're kind of like, okay, why is he the way he is? Like, why is he like? They got into his backstory, so you kind of get personality wise why he's like, but like the ability to consume like the monsters and consume the flesh of these dead beings and not have repercussions that are kind of coming to light. Why is that? And I think they're going to get into that. His brother, on the other hand, though, super annoying. Don't care if he dies. In fact, I would prefer it if he had
died.
Okay. Yeah. I think I agree that Chobe's brother Toma is my least favorite. I would say. Doesn't feel like he offers as much. I don't know. Has room to grow then, I guess. But
yeah, there you go.
I don't think his character has any room to grow. He's got no personality. He'll
probably die at some point in the next season.
Yeah, there's literally no character basis for him. He is the brother that snuck into the order and like became his guard. Cool. So your arc's done. Like,
well, he has to, like where we are now, like you wouldn't feasibly you want to see him like be able to stand on his own or, like not be so dependent upon the leadership of his brother. And so like he has plenty of room to grow there and just like to break out of that if that's of benefit to him or something.
Here's what I think would be interesting to play off these two. So he admires. It's very evident that he like admires his brother like hardcore. He thinks his brother is like almost infallible. Even though we as like passive observers realize that his brother is bad.
Like he's freeze loose. Yeah,
he's insane. But he's very interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see that the negative effects that he starts to develop because of consuming these monsters and like continuing to fight and wanting to get on is basically he starts turning, for lack of a better word, evil. And I would be very curious if they're going to say, yep, so he has to kill his brother. Like he realizes that and he sees it happening. And there's going to become a point in time where he has to make that like ultimate decision of he is no longer the brother that I think he is. He's a demon. He needs to be killed. That to me would be I'd be like, okay, you've redeemed yourself knowing like that you weren't just this like simp side character that didn't have any sort of like plot device ever.
Yeah.
Why does this sound like you're playing too much Baldur's Gate, Tony?
Are you spoiling something for me, John?
No, I'm just saying like your kind of layout here seems to be like something that you might be going through in Baldur's Gate. That's all I'm saying. So maybe you're seeing that parallel possibility here.
The only thing that I've changed on in Baldur's Gate is I went from thinking Shadowheart was annoying to I love you, Shadowheart.
And you know what? Sure. I bet her nipples are rendered.
Fully rendered. I have not gotten to any.
I was just going to ask, has your character had sex with a druid in bear form yet, or no?
No, wait, is that a thing?
Yeah, there was like a whole. That's like they showed a clip at like when they were like presenting it at a video game conference, and there was like a scene with main character and like this bear druid. I don't know. It was like a human bear getting it on. That's just what I heard. I read an article about it, but
I'm getting like flashbacks to Super Troopers with the guy in the forest in the bear costume.
Something like that.
Excuse me, bear fucker.
You might have to look it up. I may be misrepresenting the article a little bit, but it's something like that.
Yeah, no, it was I don't know how it, whatever, but it's just like the idea that yes, the option is there. Like, you know, the idea of D&D is, you know, fantasy fulfillment in this sort of situation or whatever. Like, no, normally you don't think of that necessarily, but like it's whatever you can imagine is sort of what is possible.
Sure.
You know, that's supposed to be the idea of a tabletop thing, because it's sort of just what your imagination is the limits. And so making a proper video game adaptation of that is going to provide a lot of options. So
maybe they should make a real like D&D, like dirty D&D for orgy groups.
Yeah,
like
real life, yeah. So you got to roll for
foreplay. Mm-hmm.
It probably exists, Phil. That probably exists.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's been done. I don't want to see the groups that are having orgies that are choosing to do D&D and in real life for them.
They probably have a hard time finding like equal breakdowns of genders too, I imagine, but maybe not. Maybe not. I don't want to stereotype, but
you might be on some. Yeah. Well, let's see, my favorite and least favorite characters for Hell's Paradise. Oops, didn't mean to do that view. Would be I always liked Shion, so Daredevil. I am a big fan. Always, I have a weak spot for either the elderly, unassuming whatever that's actually super badass, or someone with some sort of disability or something. So like for me, yes, Daredevil is an awesome character, and like Master Roshi in Dragon Ball, awesome character.
Just gonna ask you
I always think the like old master that will teach that whippersnapper who is really tough yet. And so Shion here, he's just the kind of character I'm looking for.
Sure.
He's kind of more stoic, he's wizened, you know, and is capable beyond what you would anticipate.
Yep.
So I like him. Least favorite, I said that already. Toma as well will probably be least favorite, the brother, at least for characters we've been introduced to thus far. So, yeah, and everybody else I'm pretty good with. You know, like they have people have interesting story arcs, and I think that's something the show does well. Is, you know, kind of everybody has some depth. You know, we do like you kind of alluding to before. We sort of seeing people's backstories, understanding how they got there a little bit. Not everybody's just like merciless killer for zero reason, you know. Right. It's something that anime is able to do well, is set up someone that is, you know, done a lot of horrible deeds and we haven't seen them, and because it's animated, we can kind of like give them a little bit of pass and come around to like them as they have their journey towards finding their moral compass or their heart or a greater purpose or something. So
absolutely,
yeah, I like that element. All right. What else we have? Anybody have anything else to say about Hell's Paradise?
Particularly, I thought it was really cool. It was good for season. Just really enjoyable. It's pretty like out there. I mean, it's I like shows like this where it's like, this is unlike really anything else out there, and the storyline is just wild. It's really cool. It's really fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would say, I mean, if someone's listening to this and they're like on the fence of watching it, I would say give it a shot. But just be prepared. It is a little like story-wise and animation-wise, it's a little bit more intense than I would say a casual show. Like Demon Slayer. If we're talking about two different styles again, Demon Slayer and Hell's Paradise. Demon Slayer is an action-based anime. It's a little bit. Yes, it is a violent one, and it does have action in it, but it's a little bit more lighthearted. It's a little bit more. At times, it doesn't take itself too seriously, so it's got kind of that comedy aspect to it, which kind of is a nice juxtaposition to the action sequences. So it kind of balances out really nice. It's a very easy watch. This one is kind of you're like buckle in because you're in kind of like a white knuckle it through the whole through the whole series because there's not a lot of comedy on this one. This one is very we're going to explore philosophical arguments of life, death. We're going to explore like violence and its like outtake on humans and like why we're driven to do these things, and it really explores like the psyche aspect of all that.
Yeah, I think there are, for at least what gets sort of attention these days, I think there's not enough shows that are okay leaving out the comedy elements. Like we're watching, Jujutsu Kaisen, and that show right now like just covered some pretty serious stuff, some pretty big deaths and surprising moments, but they still take the time to like change the art style, make it a little less detailed, more cutesy, and have a moment of like loud screaming or comedic something or another, or like someone, whatever. They take those asides and it's fine. It's in a lot of stuff these days. It didn't always used to be so much. It's a newer, I don't know when it really started. I don't know if it's fair to call it newer, but if you compare something like Cowboy Bebop, has lots of moments of levity, but the art doesn't change all of a sudden for it. Faye doesn't become like basically looking like a child as you like hit someone's head with a pan and they grow a giant lump on their head. It's just not that style of a thing. And a lot of those things have been incorporated into some pretty serious, otherwise serious shows. And so I'm happy that a show like this doesn't do those sorts of things. Because I don't want it in everything.
Fair.
Okay. Well, everybody, that's Hell's Paradise. MJ in the chat was asking, well, maybe she's jumped in and happened to hear us talking about like live D&D orgies, and it's like, what are we talking about here? This is a slight change in topic.
Sorry, this is just
no. So,
yeah, sorry, quick. Did you guys see the D&D movie by the way?
I did, and I loved it. I loved every second of that movie.
So funny, so good. John, if you haven't seen it yet, got to do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, let me wrap up here, and then I'll answer your question on that, actually. Because something I want to do going forward on this show a little bit is, if people want, we can do a little bit of a Ohio overtime and whatever we want to talk about. So like technically the podcast is done, where we keep it to the topic or to anime, but then if there's something else we want to kind of dive into for the hell of it.
Sweet.
MJ Honeybee has been in the chat throughout the night. She is a real life friend and streams regularly on Twitch. She has quite a few followers now, very active Discord. You should make sure you follow her on Twitch, MJ Honeybee. She'll welcome you into the hive, as she says. There's lots of fun like elements in there and stuff. And I think she streams like 3 times a week and for many hours. So definitely check her out. Killing the Flower wrote our theme song for the regular podcast. You should check them out on YouTube and music streaming services. And our friend Mike, who lamely decided not to show up tonight, is I shouldn't even promote his thing. He didn't show up. What are you doing? What am I doing here? He's going to be here. And then
I have nothing to promote.
Wait, are you talking about when you say Mike? You mean Mikey B?
Huh? Yeah.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah. He was going to be
Oh, Mike.
here tonight, and then he bailed. So, you know, I hope he listens to this all the way through and he's hearing this.
Mhm.
But
I'll tell
yeah,
him to.
Track Mouse. I believe on YouTube it's Track Mouse 34,
Yeah.
and he has some awesome racing videos up there. So go ahead and check that out. But anyways, our regular show will be back next week. I think next week we're talking about the movie The Menu. We kind of had to shift this down to be able to get guests on for it and stuff like that. So Menu next
Solid
week.
movie.
I've heard
Nice.
good things.
Yeah. Watch it.
So make sure you're following us, reviewing, subscribing, liking, all those sorts of places: Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, Spotify, music. Let's see, Apple Podcasts, all those sorts of places. We exist there. But otherwise, that has been Ohayou Anime, and we'll see you next time.